This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA.
Welcome, everybody. You are tuned to The Baseline. Cal Lee, Warren Shaw, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. This is a special ep of The Baseline NBA podcast. And listen, man, it's really hard to imagine how far we've come in our ability to cover the game. But sometimes, like the episodes we did not too long ago, discussing important topics that are beyond the level of sports, here again, we have an opportunity to use our platform to open up a conversation, and in doing so, been able to bring on people that we respect, people that we admire, people who are just doing the damn thing, and we want to get into the damn conversation with them because we know that they have a lot to say, and we have a lot to take in from it. Let me go ahead and roll out the red carpet to my right-hand man, www.shawsports.net, Big Kahuna PNC. My man, Mr. Warren Shaw, repping out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Mr. Shaw, I know you hype. I know I'm hype. We are ready to cipher, man. This feels like one of those old school cipher sessions that you got to get up, you got to get your pad, you got to get your pen out, and you got to get ready to take down some serious connotation that's going on right now, brother.
100%, man. I got my backpack. I'm ready to rock because we have some real heavy hitters here, some titans of the industry, so to speak. And, for us, it's just about, we got to get out the way here. It's our turn here to, in essence, even on our show, to kind of just pass the mic, and not to mansplain anything and let these ladies go out here and rock the mic the only way that they know how to. So I'm excited about this week's show. I'm excited about what we're able to do with the Baseline on a regular basis, and hope our fans and listeners, as always, will tune in and enjoy it.
Yes, we have three great guests on board. We are going to have a panel conversation about Black women in sports, preferably Black women journalists, and their where they sit in this atmosphere right now, in their ability to cover the sports that we watch, that we're entertained by, and how much of an impact they are trying to make. So on board, we have with us three really great guests that we're ready to rock with. And as always, we simply appreciate each and every single one of you guys for allowing us to be able to put these type of shows together. We hope that you enjoy this one. We want you to take in this information, but more importantly, we want you to be enlightened by this information as well too. So as always, man, get at my man Shaw at Shaw Sports NBA, or get at me at Gameface Lee. The show's Twitter handle at NBA Baseline, available on all the major platforms, whatever platforms you use to listen to the Baseline NBA podcast. We ask that you look for that, look for the show, add it to the playlist, and allow us to be your go-to resource, discussing the hot button topics that take place not just in association, but in the culture of basketball. Listen, this is how we like to roll, man. This is the way we do our thing. I'm not gonna waste any time. Let's get right into it. Let's break it down by having really the best of the best help us get into the heart of this conversation right now, here on The Breakdown. Time to break it down. Put the bone gristle. And with us to really top off this really what I feel like is a star-studded collaboration of minds to really dig into this topic and issue. I mean, we have excellent writers in the field of journalism, and also who is covering the game right now. And what more can be said? We've already had one on board, which is our girl Christina Williams. Everybody remembers her and her great introspect that she provided for us covering the WNBA. She is the founder for Girls Talk Sports TV. Christina, welcome back.
Thank you guys for having me again. It's such a pleasure to join you guys again.
And for the first time, we have on board, we've been dying to get her on, man, because she does such a great job covering the Memphis Grizzlies. She is a beat writer for the Memphis Flyer. You can also catch her on All Heart in Hoop City. Our girl Sharon Shy Brown. Sharon, thank you for jumping on board with the brothers.
Thank you guys for having me.
And rounding off this week's panel, she's a seasoned, experienced sports journalist, educator, freelance sports writer with Words and Hoops Habit, Texas Metro News, High Post Hoops, The Athletic, WNBA, and more. She is Dorothy J. Gentry. Dorothy, thanks for hopping on board with us this week.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm a pleasure and happy to join you guys. Big pleasure.
All right. So this is a great opportunity that, and I got to give kudos to my partner in crime, Mr. Shaw here, in helping us really elevate the conversation that needs to be had about Black females journalists and their impact and opportunities here in the sports media, in the sports media industry. And we felt that great individuals such as yourself can really help us spearhead the talks and talk about those personal experiences and what you're seeing as the trends of where we're headed and what we need to have for more inspired Black women to participate in helping to tell the narrative of our athletes that are in any of these sports, but specifically the WNBA and also with the NBA. So I'm going to first start with you, Sharon, because we're not trying to have you have a heart attack or nothing, but simply because this is a great opportunity for everyone to get to know who you are, what you've been doing. Talk a little bit about how you got into sports. Where did the love come from, and why was it important for you to have that impact that you currently have writing for the Memphis and covering the Memphis Grizz?
Okay, I like sports all my life because like when my uncles would come over, we would watch football and everything like that. But I didn't get into basketball until I started a journalism course. My first basketball article I wrote was about the college basketball team and about one of the guys. He was a youth pastor. And so I changed my major to law. Then when I came to Memphis, I fell in love with the Grizzlies. And so we were in Facebook groups talking about the team, and no one, the guys didn't want to hear what the women had to say. So I came up with the idea. So why don't we start a blog with female fans? And so that's where I got All Heart from, because I felt like we didn't have a voice. No one listened. And that's why, we started writing. And then our first interview we had was with the Grizzlies president of basketball operations. And it was a really good interview. And so everybody wanted to support us. But when they found out that we were really good, the support went away because people felt like we were competition. But I just wanted to give us a voice, because in Memphis, you really don't have the female voice, let alone a Black female voice in the world of sports.
Right.
Sharon, that was great input. Let me kick this over here to Christina. We didn't get a chance to have this conversation the first time because we're so excited to talk about the WNBA draft and what was going on with the W in general. But how did you get into sports, and just kind of what made you bring, your whole platform to the media realm the way that you have been?
So my initial interest in sports began as a student athlete. I used to play basketball in school. And that interest kind of translated into media after graduating college with a journalism degree, and seeing that there was not really opportunity for women that look like me in the sports industry, women of color, on broadcasts, covering sports in leagues that were predominantly Black. So I decided to launch my own sports platform, long story short, Girls Talk Sports TV, to give myself that opportunity, but also to give other women the same opportunity to be able to have some sort of professional career off the court. And that's how I started Girls Talk Sports TV.
Awesome. And finally, Dorothy, it cannot be said that, you obviously have a resume that, is filled to the brim of being able to be in tune, cover sports. You are hand in hand, flashing the pearly whites with some of the great media people right now. So give us a little bit, for our listeners, your background. How did you get into the industry? What made you decide that this is where you wanted to be, being a journalist, covering the game? And what is your perspective right now? How do you see the state of affairs for Black women being involved in the sports media and sports journalism field?
I love that last question. Just real quickly. I was born and raised in journalism. My dad was one of the first Black journalists in the city of Dallas. Rest in peace, Dad. And so I was born, to write. Covered sports in high school, sports editor in college. Never played any sports. Always loved sports. Have a brother who played in the NFL, so I've always been around sports. I've always loved it. My degree's in journalism. I've been, in radio and television, as well as print journalism. Just doing my thing. Then I got out of the business to raise my son, who's 17 now. So I took a little leeway, but I still kind of had my little foot in the door doing some freelance work. And I started with the Mavericks about 5 years or so ago, covering the Mavericks. And then I kind of moved to the G League, and then the WNBA, and then the NBA as a whole. And just began to do freelance writing in different publications. And I love it. I love sports. I love covering the games. I love covering the people who play the game and giving fans, and readers, listeners, something different, about whatever sport they love. In terms of where I see things, I think it's time now for the perspective that women can bring to the table to be heard. I don't know how to say this, but a lot of the times when you see women at sporting events, what's the first thing people think? They're there to catch. Anybody want to help me?
Not me.
I don't want to get myself in trouble.
Can I not go there? Okay. I thought we were
No. But please be absolutely candid. Be absolutely candid.
I'm just saying. I thought we was gonna have a conversation, because that's the first thing is that people think, oh, she's just trying to get a baller, or she's just trying to get an athlete, or she's just, and so, yes, and so that has been, I think, an issue for Black women journalists who cover sports more so than other women who cover sports, to me, in my estimation. They may not say it, but you can see it in their faces, when you come into the locker room, or when you're sitting in the coaches, media time. It's like, well, what is she doing here? What, you have the same
treating
potential.
it like as a groupie thing. They're not treating it as if they don't treat you with the same professionalism
Definitely.
that they are used to trying to, or supposed to be exercising when, even if it's a Black male journalist or just male journalist, period. And that type of stereotype is still endemic. When you're talking about the locker room culture and stuff, right?
Right. It's like we don't belong in that space. How dare you, kind of a thing. We went to the same college, have the same degree, and all of that. But, it's like we haven't been invited, per se, into that space. So we've had to kind of push our way in. And then it's like, okay, so now we're loud. And how, the whole characterization of the Black woman, it's like, no, we're trying to, get into this same space that you're in. It's enough to go around, but it's like we have to justify, wanting to get into the space more so than any other. And I think that's a detriment, to the fans, to the listeners, to, the people who watch sports. I think it's a detriment, because we bring something different to the table. We have a different perspective. We have a different eye on things.
Piggyback on what Dorothy said. It's like when I go in the locker room, I have kids their age. I have sons their age.
Right.
I'm just like, and then the thing comes about when they always talk about qualifications. Well, my qualifications is just as good as anyone else's, and that's what we have to deal with. People always say, well, are they qualified? Are they qualified? But yes, I am definitely qualified to be where I'm at.
We have to justify so much more, and again,
right.
I don't want to turn into
No,
session,
but it is.
We have to justify. We just have to.
Yeah, it is a very interesting part of what doesn't get spoken. It's more it's kind of an underlying whisper, like where we talk about where the double standard lies at times, and we tend to generalize these things because we're still caught up in this the jock athlete culture. But underneath all of that are these particular kind of layers, because before it was merely just credibility for a black journalist. But now the credibility is even further when you look at that when female reporters, black female reporters, are now there to cover the game and the sport. Is it that they are still, or is it that, you know, we are acknowledging the fact that your knowledge, your intellect, your ability to articulate the questions that you want to ask as it pertains to the game can be asked without there being this underlying, sexual machismo thing that's going on? Like, can we just stick to what this is supposed to be about, which is, you know, why did the Memphis Grizzlies let the Atlanta Hawks drop 120, tonight? Like that's how it should be kept along those lines. But it's difficult because we're still in this world where that's what's getting pushed.
And I do want to make sure that it's clear that it's not the athletes I'm talking about. It's the other reporters, the other journalists in the room who think that we don't belong in the room. And, covering the Mavericks on any given, night, after the game, and we're, in the post-game presser, I'm usually probably the only black, maybe one other, in the room. And I've had to learn to get comfortable in those spaces and realize I do belong here. So, yeah, I'm talking about amongst the fellow journalists that, that kind of look is still there.
So I think that's a perfect way. I'm sorry. It's a perfect way, I think, to pivot in some ways to, you've talked about the lack of validation where you shouldn't need to be validated in any way, shape, or form, because you've done the work to get to where you've gotten to. And here's where I'd ask each of you if you wouldn't mind sharing and being a little bit more vulnerable in some aspects. I'll start with you, Christina. What are some things that you've heard along the way in building your career, that you just couldn't believe were said, to you, as a black woman and doing the things you're doing in the spaces you've been? What are some of the things you've heard or microaggressions that you've encountered along the way?
Where do I start? I guess that's the first question. But as a black woman who's starting her own business inside a predominantly male field, you get pushed back a lot. And like with microaggressions, they are everywhere in this industry. And just like kind of like what Dorothy said with like, you have to feel like you're validating why you're here every single time. And for me, I'm a black-owned media outlet, and in terms of sports, I'm up against a lot of white-owned media outlets. So I mean, it's hard. And from my standpoint, just getting access sometimes is so difficult. Yeah. Just getting those credentials or approvals sometimes. Those are kind of things you face as a black journalist or a black-owned media outlet. Being on red carpets, and the PR people are strategically placing all of the black reporters or black outlets at the end of a red carpet so that you can't get your interviews that you need. It happens everywhere in this industry, so it's hard to pinpoint one situation, but that's exactly what happened.
I'd kick it to you, Sharon. Anything that you'd like to share on that as well?
Well, I don't have any specific, but I know the lack of access that I received from the Grizzlies organization. Sometimes I'm not chosen to be on an interview call or something to that nature, and that happened recently. And I had to send an email as to why I wasn't invited, because I don't really think there was any woman on the call or anything, but I had to send an email to ask why it happened. There were apologies, but it didn't suffice for me. So, but it's just the lack of access sometimes, and then it's just like sometimes when you're in the room, like Dorothy said, some of the other reporters don't think that you belong, but they don't say anything directly to me because they know that I will say something back. So, yeah.
But you can feel it though, you can feel it in the looks. You can cut the tension with a knife.
Right.
And so I look at them and look at me, and I'm like, the problem, it's so unfortunate, and it can be very disheartening at that. I worked hard for my journalism degree, and then I think that some of society and some of the way that the media portrays Black women on television and in ads and things like that also goes into the way that we're received in the sports world. Because they see a Black woman and they think about all those images and all those stereotypes that they've been fed. So, the media itself is also to blame, for its characterization of Black women, and then when we try to get into these spaces, we're fighting those characterizations of Black women and then everything else.
I can sense that I can sense that there's definite frustration there, and it's rightly so. It's very much, it's justified, and I think part of that also lends to it basically deflates the encouragement for more Black females to want or have a desire to be involved in print journalism, to your point, Dorothy. And I often found that, I'm kind of old school, I've often found that, you there has to be a foundation, whether you choose to do radio broadcasts, whether you choose to be on television, that you still have to have an ability to convey and report the news in some form or fashion. I think that's what helps validate. But everything now just seems to be based on face and place. And unfortunately, that type of inconsistency then lends to, I think, part of some of the stuff that you guys are experiencing, just in the simplicity of being able to cover what you are being asked to cover. And the fact that there is no support by your own, who you're writing for, or who you're writing on behalf of, that also lends to it. Do you often sense that more than anything to be, as if not the most frustrating thing? And I'll throw that question to you, Sharon, to start. Is that kind of the prevalent truth? Like, do you feel like you're fighting the battle on your own because you're just not getting the adequate support, the adequate push? And it's not to blame. It's just that they're not seeing it. They're not picking up on it as quickly as you see it, that you're being discriminated against because of this belief that as a Black female, you don't have the same validation as any other reporter that's going to be in there to cover what's going on.
Well, in my situation, it's just like I'm really not cool or like really friends, with PR. I'm friends with some of them, but I'm not like their buddies or whatever, because it just seemed like the buddy would get more access than anyone else. You know what I'm saying? And then and most of the times I feel like, go back to the other question, it's just like I'm not eye candy. And I just feel like eye candy is what they put in front of the TV. I'm not eye candy. And then it's just like sometimes the way that you look, you won't get the same opportunity as someone else. And it's like I'm saying, I'm older and I'm not eye candy. And so I think that I don't get those type of opportunities that I should get.
And how about yourself, Christina? Do you notice that, now that you're actually, you're on your own, and I think maybe that might actually somewhat answer that question, that it's autonomous, right? For you, you have the freedom to push when you need to push, but is it that part of that lends to the fact that when you dealt with other entities and tried to write for other entities on their behalf, that the support system was not there for you to be able to further where you wanted to be or where you needed to be?
Absolutely. And I think that's exactly why ownership, I see, is very important, and why I think that the industry of journalism is going to change in the next, 2 to 5 years. It's because, especially now when we see what happened with COVID and how a lot of writers are actually like making their own platforms and having people subscribe to their work, you can just cut the middleman and do what you're passionate about. And I feel like if we push in the Black community, especially ownership, that we can get a lot further. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to create my own platform as well, because at that time I was working for someone else and their mission didn't really align with my personal beliefs and what I wanted. And I didn't want to sell myself out for a check or for clout or whatever people call it these days. And I created my own platform. and set my own path. So I think in the future we'll definitely see a change that's going to happen. But yeah, I definitely have had those situations happen to me.
So I want to jump in real quick, and it's almost a challenge in some ways to what Christina said. So think about it from this standpoint, right? What's better for all of you? All of you at some point have worked for others, and then are now kind of, even in a sense, kind of working for yourself in some aspects, right? What do you think is ultimately going to allow for the most level of access for where you ultimately want to go? Because so Christina just said, which is very, very true, everybody now is doing their own thing. Everybody has a platform. And even for us as podcasters, there's over 1 million podcasters and everyone has a show at the same time. It's hard. Not everybody can get access. And there are a lot of talented people out there as well, too. So what do you all think in general from the standpoint of, would you rather be on your own and kind of carving your own and charting your own path, so to speak? Or is the goal to potentially ultimately to get on board with some of the larger platforms that are still lacking diversity? We're seeing places like The Ringer and Sports Illustrated, they're not doing shit for Black people in general, right? So would it be better to potentially get into those spaces, or can continue to chart your own path? I want to throw this up, whoever wants to answer it first, because I think it's a very unique question.
I was going to say, I'm older than I look. I tell everybody that I'm 54 years old. And so I've been around for a minute. And so I grew up wanting to be on ESPN. I'm just going to put it out there. I grew up wanting to write for the Dallas Morning News, my hometown paper. I grew up wanting to be on, this or on that, those major, as they call them, or mainstream media outlets, But now, I see the way that they, I guess you could say, marginalize us, or
and
maybe
marginalize and exploit.
Yeah, two or three of us in there, and then they want to control what you say and how you say it, and you have to have that certain look. The what Sharon mentioned, of course, that eye candy kind of a thing. And so once I begin to see all of that going on, it's like, oh wow, is that what it's going to be? And those are the outlets that get the scoops and that get the, how come only 3 or 4 of the top NBA people that, will remain nameless, I guess you could say, are the ones getting all the scoops and the leaks from the NBA? Other than Chris Haynes with Yahoo Sports, everybody else is white. Well, how come Sharon can't get a scoop or something from the NBA? How about giving Christina, Girls Talk TV, some kind of a scoop or something? You know what I mean? It's like, if we aren't part of those larger outlets, then we don't have a chance. So then, to answer your question directly, I've looked at creating my own thing, but then there's the issue of capital and money and resources, to be able to try to make that happen. So you're in a rock, between a rock and a hard place, because those names, The Athletic and ESPN and Yahoo Sports, they open up doors. Agents return those calls. Agents return those emails when they see those names or those letters. So we're fighting so much, but we have to continue fighting.
Sharon, what were your thoughts on that?
I'm at the point where I don't want to be in a space that I have to fight to get into. I would rather create my own, because it's just, if I have to fight to get in that space, you didn't want me to be in that space anyway.
That's
and
true.
then it's just like, I don't want to be, I want to say what I want to say. I don't want to have to conform to a company, because I am who I am and I say what I want to say. So I'd rather be able to be in my own space that I created and that I feel comfortable in.
Absolutely.
And that's why I admire Christina so much. She's,
Thank you.
created awesome. I'm like, man, she's doing the darn thing, and I think that's so wonderful. I'll be like her when I grow up. So,
Oh God, thank you so much.
It's necessary.
It's very necessary, because it's just like, even when you put out hire Black women in sports, people still have a problem with it. Like they had a problem with it last week. I mean, they was like, well, you need to be hired not based on color, whatever. But I say, do you guys have a problem when you see all these white men on TV and in newspapers telling you about sports when you barely see, women or other women, black women or other women of
Mhm.
color? And then some of them can be hired. They put out a tweet. The next week they have a
Oh my
job, but we
God.
can't do that.
Yeah.
Oh
We
yeah, I
can't do
definitely
that.
see that happening. Yep, the support is really usually within the white community when someone gets laid off, furloughed, or whatever, and you see the tweets
Right.
on Twitter, and it's like, hire this person's talented. Whereas like a lot of black women lost their jobs due to COVID, and you didn't really see that balanced support. So like as women in this Black women, we're definitely facing so much within this industry, and that's why I appreciate women who are at the pinnacles of their career, like a LaChina Robinson, a Taylor Rooks, who have been speaking out against Jamel Hill, who's been speaking out against all of this, really to be a voice for all of us who can't necessarily speak up for ourselves. And I feel like as someone who created their own platform, it's really important for me to use my resources and give back and help other women of color to get them to where they need to be. And I've been so blessed to have like the WNBA embrace what I'm doing, but I'm also faced with so many challenges daily when it comes to getting access, getting the scoops, and like to a point is like a disadvantage. Because in a W, you have like 3 or 4 people, white men, who get all of the scoop in the WNBA. So I just feel like it's up to the agents, it's up to the decision makers, it's up to the different franchises to help move the needle and to make a difference and to make a change. So
real quick, Christina, I actually want you to follow up on something, because I think then this is going to lead to the next point that I think Dorothy and Sharon, I think you're going to chime in on this, is, we have seen how powerful pro athletes can be when it comes to coming together and participating and speaking on a message, and how sometimes it's not just the money, but it's the voice and it's the presence. And it's interesting because while we're in this moment that we're dealing with right now regarding police brutality, social injustice, and racial inequality, the interesting part about what we're talking about here is that the NBA dynamically is the most advantageous for black athletes, and also maybe into some degree, slowly but surely, the WNBA are two profiled sports that is really highlighting the ability for the athlete to, as an individual themselves, people have the opportunity to get to know more than them just going out there and playing the game. I'm curious from you, Christina, do you see where the WNBA can start to recognize and realize that they can help change that narrative that we're talking about in being able to offer the opportunities to allow black female journalists to be on equal footing as would be any of their white female or male journalist counterparts that are helping to cover the game? Because it's interesting to me, I feel like in the NBA, the LeBron Jameses and the cat the Karl Anthony Townses and the James Harden, they can easily pull a black journalist and say, I'm going to give you this story and let you guys run with it.
That's it.
In order to tell the story, instead of just always gravitating to the same top 3, or them leveraging those departments of the organizations that they play for to say, hey, this person has been covering us like how it should be covered. They should be getting the scoop on what's going on with me, or the contract negotiations, or this, that, and the third. So I wanted to get your take. Do you see the WNBA trending in that type of direction? Because I think it's going to be either one of these two sports, so to speak, that might be the ones that open up that door a little bit more so than the NFL or MLB or NHL or even NASCAR.
Well, it's already happening within the WNBA. Just last week, my girl Ari Chambers, she reported factually on what was happening with the WNBA bubble city, and she received a lot of criticism and backlash from WNBA agents and people for being mad at her for reporting correctly what was happening. And I know it was correctly because I've spoken to players and I know what was happening and stuff. And I'm not one to like break news, but I know that her report was 100% correct. And she received a lot of backlash for a Black woman to come out and give a breaking news story about what the players would receive in terms of their contracts and conditions inside the bubble. So it's already happening. The players went to Ari and said, hey, we want you to tweet this out because this is how we feel. And we know that you have your platform and you've been covering us. And we think that you're the right person to speak up for us. And she wrote her article for her news outlet that she writes for, but she received so much pushback from the league, the WNPPA, and no one really had her back except other reporters who are of color. You know what I mean? Everyone else was like kind of against her. And it's like, we have to protect Black journalists at all costs. That's number one. And number two, just respect the work that people put in. Like, I get it that the league, you know, they have their go-tos or whatever, but there are real people on the ground that's been putting in work for years that ought to be recognized for the work that they're doing. And so in the WNBA, in terms of that, we already see it happening with players, agents, giving this scoop to hardworking journalists that they see who are like working hard to provide coverage, but also there are people on the other hand who complain about the league only receiving 4% of all media coverage. But then when the people who are willing to cover the league request access, they get denied. So there has to be some middle ground in that because there are people who are willing to cover it. They may not be a Yahoo Sports or Athletic or a big name, but granted, they have a platform. And if they want to cover it, you should not count out the grassroots outlets or the people and journalists who are not necessarily backed by a bigger brand or company. And, you know, with Girls Talk Sports TV, my consistency is what gets me through the door when it comes to that, in terms of that. And so we see it happening already. And I just pray that it continues to happen. And we have like the LaChina Robinsons who speak up for us, who are not a part of the ESPNs and their companies. And so we're very appreciative of those people who are speaking up about it because there's a discrepancy in those that get access or the credibility. Like, don't try to discredit us, especially if the reports are 100% correct.
I feel a little differently. It's just like I really don't need validation because something happened to me like last week when about the NBPA announcement about the vote. About the vote. And then it's just like I'm telling people, well, it didn't say that they agreed. They agreed to keep negotiating. And then it's just like a lot of guys who was saying, well, Sharon was the first one to say it, whatever, and no one really paid attention. I shouldn't have to be validated by white males for me to get attention. It's just like I read press releases. It's just I just don't go off the report from Waj or Shams or anyone else. I read the press release and I don't. And then it's just like I learned long ago, wait for the press releases and then just don't go off of the reports that they give you because something in the press release, there's more in there because it's come directly from the NBA and come directly from the teams or whatever. But people just listen and it's like I shouldn't have to be validated from anyone else because I know what I'm doing. I've been doing it, you know, for a while. And it just irks me that I shouldn't have to be validated from anybody else.
Again, what Sharon is saying goes back to having to justify the word I used when we first got on here. We have to continuously justify our existence or what we wrote or what we said. And I wanted to give a quick shout out to Sharon too, because she was championing, you know, the calls with her hashtag she created, you know, Black women in sports or hire Black women in sports. So she, you know, went on a week long, you know, tweet fest, you know, about that and had others tweeting that as well. So shout out to Sharon as well.
Shout out. Yes.
So I wanted to throw that in there right quick.
And actually I started it last year and then it went a little viral, but it's just like I got backlash from the little racist people and they was like, well, why should be Black women in sports? And then every time it comes up, every time I tweet about it, well, qualifications, but it has nothing to do with qualifications. at all.
And the word qualification only comes up, I think, and I'm not going to generalize, although I did say only, but I believe, or it's been my experience, that qualifications, comes up when it comes to us, Black women. I think we're fighting so much more. We're fighting stereotypes and characterizations and, decades long, beliefs about Black women in general. Before we even get to the Black women in sports and our journalism credentials, we're fighting all of that before we even get in the room, especially, and I'm going to go here since y'all want to play today, the dark-skinned women, of which I am.
Colorism is a thing.
I have
colorism is a thing. Yep.
And so, I really think we're fighting so much more before we even get to the post-game presser, all of the stereotypes, the beliefs, the characterizations. I really believe that. They don't even know anything about me or what I can do or, where I went to school or any of that. They just see me and then it all,
And it's very disheartening when the Black men don't have our back when we're facing this. Some of them do not have our back. They do not have our back at all. And then some of them, when I was tweeting that out, said something to me as well. I'm like, really? That's really disheartening.
It is. It can be disheartening because we want to succeed too. We want to do our job too. We want to excel too. It's like, guys, it's enough to go around. So I just continue, to pray that things get better. I'm on, Twitter and social media, liking and reposting and retweeting all my sisters and go girl, you better work it out, and just, trying to uplift and encourage them, because I know I've not gotten that. So let me give what I'd like to get, so girl, you doing your thing and, let's go and y'all read this and y'all check this out and y'all go over here and y'all follow her, those kinds of things, trying to uplift the Black women in sports, because we don't get that.
Where do you think we're going to be, a year from now? We always talk about movements and especially the social media ones that are here for a minute and then forgotten in a month. So with all the quote unquote diversity hires that are taking place right now, would you as a Black female, any of you, feel any type of way about accepting a diversity hire? One, and then two, for those who do, I've actually had some conversations with some younger students who I work with who feel like they don't want to go in there and be, and again, as we're talking real, the token Black. And that to me is disheartening in some ways too, because then they feel like, okay, well now I feel this immense pressure to have to speak on behalf of all Black people, on behalf of all Black women, if I'm the hire in this position. But these companies and these places aren't doing the right thing to begin with. So it's one way you have to, in some ways you have to be a trailblazer, but then you have the weight of the world on you if you go into these positions. What are your thoughts on kind of all that, and where do you see these movements potentially going, and or maybe even dying in a short amount of time?
Diversity hire, I like that term. I never heard that before. Part of me is like, okay, yeah, I'm down with that. Let me get in here and then let me try to help make some changes or bring somebody else along or, open some doors for someone else. I can, get inside and then help someone else hopefully get inside. But then I'm like, no, because I don't want to have to compromise to keep that. I don't want to have my voice squashed or my voice tempered, to meet corporate standards or whatever the situation is. So it's kind of a catch-22. You'd love to have that title behind your name, or when your name comes up, those letters or that outlet or that publication comes along with it, and then the eyebrows raised because of said publication or said outlet. There's that part, but then your integrity, your name is all you have. How do you go to bed at night? How do you sleep at night? With integrity, knowing that you've done the right thing all throughout the day. So I think that would be the stronger for me in terms of just kind of creating my own thing or kind of staying in a freelance type of mode, to where I can just, do me, be me, champion others, and just try to make change that way. So I see it both ways, being a diversity hire to help others to get in there, or just kind of doing your own thing?
Okay, me myself, I wouldn't want to be a diversity hire because I don't want to speak for, all of my race when they don't have to speak for all of their race. Okay, how
Mhm.
about putting you're gonna do diversity hire, put someone in charge. Put a black woman in charge, put a black man in charge, do it that way. Then you go out and you hire the reporters. Because if just like I don't want to be the only black woman in the room with mostly whites. I don't want to do that. That's been done before. I want something different. Give me a diverse place for me to work at. We would have to have something in a contract or anything, but I'd rather be on my own and create my own space.
And yeah, just to
Christina, before you
Mhm.
before you jump in, I wanted to actually kind of highlight the point to what Sharon is saying, and then piggyback off of
Right.
what Dorothy is saying, and
Right.
want to get your take from this. Just recently, the NFL, well, not the NFL, excuse me. There was a letter that was sent to Congress. It was the Players Coalition, right? And it was a collective body
Yep.
of athletes, not just from one sports genre, that was speaking to what they were asking or maybe even requesting that Congress at least start doing as it pertains to better policies and reform when it comes to policing, right? And it's interesting because it literally took, I don't know how many people being hurt, murdered, harassed, brutalized, whatever the case may be, before we collectively saw a lot of players from different
Yep.
sports genres to come together and say something. Is that what it's going to take for there to be a comfort level that black female journalists would have to be on, so that when they speak on some of these injustices and inequalities that is taking place, not just in their own workplace, but just across the board, that their voices will be taken more seriously than just the one person that's always saying something, whether it be through Twitter or Facebook or even on their own platforms to highlight what is actually going on.
I definitely think it's just going to take all of us to come together, especially, but also if the athletes begin to back those that they see who are speaking out. And like I said, again, in the WNBA, it's happening. I've had some W players speak out and say, this is not right. And on behalf of the women that they see working hard in the way to cover their league and everything like that. So I think it'll take the athletes also to back those people that they see who are covering their league and seeing who is at a disadvantage in itself to come together and say, we need to see a change. I mean, we do have NABJ who advocates on our behalf, but I feel like, that's one part of it. But also if the league begin to see that the athletes, are on our side as well, that would also help. And like I said, again, in the WNBA, we definitely see it happening with the athletes, and especially in the next 10 days or so, where a lot of the players in the WNBA will opt out of playing the 2020 season to stay home and fight against the social injustices. We see them already taking a stance on that side. And so it's going to be really interesting in the next week or so to see what happens. But I feel like, especially in the WNBA, the athletes are already advocating for us as women of color who are in the media space. And I've seen not a 360, but I've seen, like in the last few weeks or so, certain PRs or agents reaching out to me personally to give me a scoop, to give me more access, to do their part. But it took a damn pandemic and us to march to get here, So small steps to big changes. I get it. But I want to say that it's already happening.
So I want to thank you all for this amazing conversation. And as we close out, I'm going to go around and just give everybody an opportunity to give their closing remarks and then tell people where they can follow you, on social media and the various platforms that you're on. So Christina, we'll go ahead and start with you.
I just want to say thank you so much again for having me join the conversation and be on the podcast again. My closing remarks is that in order to see real change, we really need to all come together and just have some sort of plan of how we want to move forward. So we already have the attention of everyone, I want to say in the nation right now, as far as the Black community. And I just feel like if we have some sort of action plan in place, we can start to see real changes happening in the sports industry, specifically in the WNBA. I am seeing a change just through my personal brand and like what's happening. These last few weeks, I've been seeing a little bit of a change, but that's just it. Just for us to have a plan as the community as to what we want, and then how to take those steps to make that happen. People can find me on Twitter at Christina2334. I'm on Instagram at Christina Williams. That's KHRISTINAWILLIAMS. And then also on girlstalksports.tv on Instagram.
Thank you guys for having me, and I really enjoyed this conversation. My closing remarks is support Black women in sports because our Black voices matter. And I can be found at Sharon Shy Brown on Twitter. On my IG, I'm Foxy Shy D, FOXSY and you can find me on allheartandhoopcity.com and on thememphisflyer.com.
Well, I just want to say thank you as well for the opportunity just to share, to just share our thoughts, our hearts, and let you know that we're here and we want to do the work. We can do the work, and we will do the work. Support Black women, Black voices, because they all do matter, most definitely. And you can find me at Dorothy J. Gentry on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, Dorothy J. Gentry.
All right, ladies, again, thank you so much for this amazing conversation. The conversation is going to need to continue though, right? Things cannot be solved kind of in a day. As they say, Rome wasn't built in one. And we definitely need to make sure that we do our part as Black men, as Black women, to make sure that we're all being uplifted on a regular basis. And, I look forward to continuing to support all of your work and all the things that you all do moving forward. And, hopefully we can build a coalition of sorts, amongst ourselves that will continue to elevate and promote the platforms that we're all trying to attain. Thank you again so much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, what more can be said, man? I feel like we've only scratched the surface, but if we're trying to journey to the center, to the heart of this matter, I don't know if whether or not we'd have been able to get three really, just intuitive and just profound women who are, maybe to some people, they see them as journalists, but I just see them as trailblazers. The depth and the breadth of their knowledge and their passion, to me, rivals, a lot of people right now that we follow and we, look at to get sports information from. To me, it's just amazing the people that we kind of come across in our endeavors in doing, our show and covering, the NBA and just sports in general, just culture in general. And for them to be able to do what they've been doing for so long and do it so well is really just a testament to the positivity, of where our ethnicity, our culture, has come from and where we're headed. If we're going to continue to have leaders like Christina, Sharon, and Dorothy on board, I mean, I'm always going to feel positive about the outlook that we'll get to that place, that they are pushing for so hard.
Yeah, I mean, flat out, they know what the hell they're doing, right? And they all want to go about it in their own ways. And I admire the hell out of each one of them. I think we've gone beyond just being social media friends with most of them, where we care about those ladies and what they're doing and about the path that they're charting out. And I think, as you alluded to, they're trailblazers. They're going to be trailblazing, for the next, people that are trying to come up behind them as well. They just have it together. And I think it was important for us to let that conversation breathe. Right, we didn't really need to talk. It was amazing to kind of just sit back and listen to them feed off of each other, and make points and counterpoints to all the things that were being stated. And it's an important conversation that, as I alluded to, it just can't be a one-time thing. And I'm anxious to see where all three of them, how their careers kind of chart, all the great things that they're going to do. And I want to say even one more time, the Baseline NBA podcast will be there to support them no matter what.
And let me also highlight something that I think we didn't get a chance to really kind of open this up for, but I just want to make sure that this is understood. You know, some of our guests are mothers, some of them are daughters, some of them are grandmothers, and what makes me feel good about who they are and what they represent is they are reflective of where our generation never had the opportunity or the chance to go back and really lend to showing them what sports means to us as it means to them and their families and their circle, and what it means in the community of which they operate from, right? And I think that to me is where the next generation to me has a great opportunity of moving this thing forward, because in my day growing up, in my family, I knew sports. You know what I'm saying? I'm the one who was showing my family members, you know, how the game of baseball, the rules of baseball, you know, teaching them all the players for my favorite basketball teams. You know, in this day and age right now, part of the reason where I especially feel like there's that frustration that's definitely there, where the credibility doesn't lie, is because they were still stuck in this era of believing that it's still hard to believe that women should and will always should have a fair footing in their ability to do the things that we as men have been afforded the opportunity to do, whether we choose to do it or we don't do it. And here you have women who, in this era, in this time, in this space, have managed to position themselves where their kids and their kids' kids, they can look to them with the same aspirations, the same desire of getting the knowledge of the game. And it doesn't have to be from their dad. It doesn't have to be from the brother. It doesn't have to be from the older male cousin. It could be from the women in their family. And that to me is encouraging, because it validates the reason why they're doing what they're doing. If their own kids, if they're, you know, if the youth can recognize what they are providing to them in equal to what white male journalists are doing and what other kids have always been given that opportunity to do, that to me speaks volumes in the future for young black females who want to be journalists, because now they can look at them and say, we know she knows the game. We know she knows the numbers. We know she knows what that game's supposed to mean to them.
Yeah, it's funny in some ways, more not funny, more ironic, I guess it would say. The old adage, right, that you have all these things going against you, especially if you're black, and then if you're a black female, it's like okay, it's like double jeopardy, or the double negative, if you will. But I think really in the sports realm, as they alluded to, that should be a positive. Because who can tell our stories better than us, right? Absolutely. And they have the opportunity and should be afforded the opportunity to do just that, because they know exactly what it means to be not just person of color, but to understand what athletes are going through in the sports realm, but even to be able to relate to them just on a human level. And I think that's, you know, probably first and foremost. As we continue to move forward, you know, with our show and the things that we do, you know, I want to make sure that we continue to be an advocate, you know, for these types of conversations, and, you know, these young ladies who have all the skill and professionalism in the world. And I listen, if you don't follow Sharon on Twitter, please do. If you don't follow Dorothy, if you don't follow Christina, please do. One thing I'll say about Sharon, she will get people together. And in some ways she shouldn't have to, but she does, because she's fighting for what's right, you know. And Christina and Dorothy do the same as well. And I get a kick out of it sometimes, because when I see someone coming with their offhand comments or their lack of insight on what they're doing, I know they're going to stand up and do the right thing and speak up. But it shouldn't continue to have to be that way. They shouldn't have to continue to speak out against these injustices, you know, and the inequalities that's happening in the sports realm against them specifically. So as I said, we'll continue to try to advocate to the best of our abilities, but I want to make sure that young ladies continue to do what they do and know that people are behind them and people are watching and seeing the great work that they're producing.
Absolutely. And once again, we really want to extend our appreciation, our gratefulness to Christina Williams, Sharon Brown, and Dorothy Gentry for hopping on board with us and really helping to elevate this really important conversation. We so much appreciate them sitting down with us and giving us the real. And we hope that you guys were able to take in a lot of not just what they said, but also take in what they're showing us. Because this is all groundwork of us being able to move forward and to be able to successfully convey the way that games should be covered. It should be covered from all aspects. And maybe one day we'll get to a point where it shouldn't matter my skin color, it shouldn't matter my gender. But for the most part, I want it to be because they know what the hell they're talking about. And they have aptly put us in that position where, you know, these are three dynamic women who are really trailblazing the conversation and helping to elevate this moving forward. Once again, we'd like to thank Christina Williams, Sharon Brown, Dorothy Gentry. I also like to thank my man 50 Grand, Mr. Warren Shaw, for the baseline. We appreciate you guys. We really do. You know we do. This is why we keep doing what we do. And we'll catch up with you next time.